Alright, so let's see where we're at now. As you can see over in this corner, there's a fairly good light, and don't bother looking at this with your eyeballs because it's going to look pretty similar overall. You got to look at it through your camera at the settings you're expecting to judge the light properly. So you can see there's a big dead spot in the middle there. There's that big fade off in the bottom corner. What you'll also see as we move in here is tracking markers. They're still not showing up as orange, unfortunately, but I haven't set those settings correctly yet. So I didn't bother doing them up at the top. And let's move over here real quick. You'll see I had a pretty good density going on here with those. I think that was every 4 or 5 inches or so. So on this sheet, I figured I could get away with 3 across and 3 or 4 up, but I switched over to 4 across, and that's going to be a good density overall. When you're setting up tracking markers, they should be pretty consistent grid. Triangles work best, circles next, and then squares I think is the order. These are circles because I happen to have a hole punch. Oh, you can see how orange neon it is there. Maybe that's almost pink, but that's orange in person. So those are all the holes that I cut out just for this wall. There's probably there's a few dozen up there. But what was I talking about? Keeping them square. They should be pretty consistent overall. So if you follow the tracking markers here, you'll see they're pretty good until all of a sudden they start lifting up in the corner, and then they're at a totally different height in this wall. That's kind of okay. What you don't want is one, like let's say, so you got these 4 here. You wouldn't want this one at this corner to be somewhere in here, because what'll happen is you'll have a tracking, your tracker will be locked on to a certain point, and as you move your camera around, it'll track on to that section, then all of a sudden it'll jump. And then it'll follow a different one. If it's a regular grid, it's less likely to do that, and you're going to have a lot fewer problems. So one of the other things you're probably asking yourself is, well, if the purpose of a green screen is to have a single color that you can key, then you've got all these little orange dots everywhere, and those aren't going to key. Guess what? You are correct. Tracking markers and green screen are mutually exclusive techniques. Tracking is for tracking, the green screen is for keying. So, what you got to do once you have your tracking information is clean all these little dots out of there, and I'll go over that down the road. It's one of those techniques that you really got to do. I mean, if you just want to throw a model in front of a single piece of paper, such as green or blue or whatever, and take a still photo of it and zap it across the screen, that's great. It's a super fast and furious way to go about it. But if you're really going to do it properly and using the best techniques possible, then you work with the best materials you got at the time, and you do it the way it's really done. Tracking markers, keying, rotoscoping, rig removal, all that stuff, all the way leading up to the composite. The composite itself with the lighting is the final touch. There's 90% of the work goes into that. And when you're dealing with green screens, the common phrase in Hollywood is, we'll fix it in post. What that means is they're going to let things slip in production and pre-production and just figure someone will work some magic at the end and everything will be fine at that point. That's great because that's my career that's based off of, so I don't mind that because it generally keeps me employed. However, it is kind of lazy, and you get a lot of dirty screens. I mean, people think that green screens are a magic solution. No, they're just the beginning of your headache that's about to come. So working with the best possible green screen, getting the most consistent lighting across it, dealing with as few seams as possible that you got to clean up, all that stuff makes things so much easier for you later down the road. So what is it? Ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Is that how that one goes? So that one's basically true. And in this case, I am going to have a lot of seams to clean up. Hopefully it won't be too bad. It all depends on how we're going to move the camera around. Got to clean the tracking markers out of there anyway, so it's less of a big deal. But vertical and horizontal seams are killers. So that will be something to watch out for, and showing you all the problems and pitfalls that you will come up against. Hopefully you'll see how to avoid them. So I'm showing you all the ugly stuff now, so that when you get some clean stuff and you're working with a single sheet of actual proper chroma material, you're going to be like, ah, this is a breeze. It is a breeze when you're going at it from that way, and this is the nightmare side of it all. So enjoy the ride. The next video, let's see, where am I stepping up to next? Got the tracking markers down, got the seams as good as they're going to get, which is too bad. I'm going to have to fix some of the lighting, set up some more lights. We're 6 minutes in. I'll do a minute on this table here. So one of the big things about your green screen lighting and your subject lighting is you've got to keep them as separate as possible. All these lights up here are focused on the wall, so there's as little bounce as possible. Let me go and turn the room light off here. So you can see that there's a good amount of fall off on this table, and then it gets less and less across the room. If I can get less bounce off that wall and on this table, all the better. And I may have to pull the table closer to me right now. That creates another problem, which is called depth of field, depth of focus as well. So when you're shooting miniatures, if you've ever taken a picture of your model, you've probably noticed that there's a lot of blur at the front, a lot of blur at the back, and it makes it look like a model. The way around that is to get really far away and zoom your camera in. That flattens everything out, and you get a lot less, at least, depth of field going on, or depth of focus. So, unfortunately, the furthest back I can get from this table is about maybe 4 feet, just about 5. So that's not really great. Ideally, going into the far corner of the room over there would be good in shooting across. However, in this corner I've got a window, and over in that corner, that's just basically a hollowed out closet. So there's all sorts of architecture back there that makes green screening in that corner impossible. So this is what I'm stuck with. You work with the best you got. What this is basically showing me is that I may have to turn my living room, which is 20 feet across, into a green screen room eventually. Do the firewall green, set up the camera far across the room, zoom in, get the model that way. That will also cut down on bounce from the wall and make isolating your subject from the background that much easier. So exactly where I'm going to put the subject lights on this table I haven't figured out yet, but we'll go along from there, and we'll both learn as I go, basically. So that's pretty much it for this installment. Thanks for watching. See you.